let's start. Okay. So first we need to go over the major indexes. And so what we're looking at here is we have a lot of wicking going on here. So this leads me to believe that we're short-term bullish. And when we go look at the daily time frame, you can see we had this big consolidation area for a long time, this range that we were chopping in between, and we had a nice breakout of it the other day or on Friday. So what I'm looking at is a potential bounce into next week, and we can find some key levels to draw. So then we will have an understanding of where we may bounce. So I'm going to do that now. Basically, I'll always do this with the indexes just so I have a good understanding of where I think the market's going to go next. So we have a key level here. As you can see, it's acted as support, and resistance. I always want to make sure that my levels act as support and resistance, or it's just a very clear level of with aggressive moves coming off of that level. So if you need a refresher on that, I have that in the webinar recordings tab. But continuing on, we're looking through here, and you can see we have support here at 3808, and I would call this around 3800. So that's the kind of the area. I'm not looking to pinpoint exactly where the market's going to turn. I'm just looking for areas of significant interest, and I can act upon those. So other levels that we can go through and draw. Seems to be a area of support here. That was part of this consolidation. When we broke it, we had a fake out and then broke down. So it acted as resistance here, here, and acted as support once it broke above here, and acted as support again over here. So looking at the daily time frame, really I'm looking for a break of these two sides. I kind of am expecting a move up to this area here. So that would probably be about another $5 on SPY or so, and possibly a rejection here. We might move a little bit up into this higher area closer to 4,000 and then reject, but I'm ultimately expecting this downtrend to continue. But, anything can happen here. So I'm looking for a retest and breakdown of this area up here for SPY, so the overall market. So I'm bearish on the market right now. I think the reason why we are pulling back is because a lot of these NASDAQ stocks are very oversold. We're in this oversold spot where, as you can see, it was a key support level on the weekly time frame here, where we bounced here. We acted as resistance here, and then we had a bounce here and a bounce here, and now we had some pretty clean wicks off of that. So the reason why I don't think SPY will necessarily reject right at 39.50 is because the NASDAQ is at such a low spot. So I think NASDAQ has potential to come and reject in this area here, somewhere around, let's call it here, somewhere around this area, the 280 level. So really that's almost pinpointed at 280. So I'm kind of looking for a move back up there for this. So that's why I think that we may fake some shorts out. Like, I think a lot of people are starting to buy into puts. When we're looking at this level here, we had a bear flag. We broke out upside, and I think people are going to start loading up on puts here. They'll probably push it up a little higher because the NASDAQ needs to retrace a little bit more. And then I think we'll have the move to the downside. So like, I'm short-term bullish with like the beginning part of the week and potentially all of this week, and then bullet or bearish there on out. Really, I just want to see a move up and then essentially a move down in the indexes. So that's what we're looking for here. And another way you can build that thesis is if you go look at, I always have these takers pulled up on my platform just so I can keep an eye on them, because if I'm not completely clear on what the indexes are going to do, I go look at the Apple, Meta, Amazon, Google, and Microsoft. Not really AMD, just I kind of look at that for semiconductors. But I really look at these top 5 holdings that are in SPY and NASDAQ. So Apple being the number one that I really do watch consistently. And this can give you really good signs of where the market may go from there. And so as you can see, I'm going to clear this off. We're at a pretty significant level of support here at this level right here. So you can see it was resistance here, support here, and then we kind of chopped in between here using it as a level in this chop zone, right? And so this is obviously a clear level. So we held over this for two nice long wicks. We have earnings coming up. So honestly, I am bullish on Apple going into next week. I think we could see a retracement back up to this level here of 135 and then potentially keep running even into earnings. Let's see, when is earnings? So next month, beginning of next month. A lot of times Apple likes to run into its earnings. If you look here, this run that we had into earnings, another time we bottomed out and then we ran into earnings here. See the nice run we had here? Okay. This earnings report obviously did not work out, but this earnings report, we bottomed out and then gapped up. This one we had a run. This one we had a run. See? This one we had a run before. Okay, so you get my point. Majority of the time we run before Apple earnings, and you can see this with pretty much any stocks, right? If we go look at JPM, banks report on Friday. That's really the only earnings reports that really matter coming up on Friday. But if we look at this here, we had a clear run up all the way up until earnings. So like we had a good earnings report and continue to run. And then if you look at this, we consolidated for a few weeks at a time. And then we just broke out again. So, I mean, really, when you're looking at this, a lot of stocks like to run into earnings. So, and here's a prime example. Like we had earnings, it was good, consolidated for a while. And then now we had a nice run the past about 2 weeks going into this earnings report. And I wouldn't be surprised if we continue to break out of this bull flag that we had been forming for weeks and move up to this area closer to 143. This isn't part of my watch list. This is just an idea of how stocks like to run into their earnings report. So that's another reason I'm short-term bullish on Apple. And I think Apple really does whatever it wants. So I wouldn't be surprised. We have a squeeze here. We're oversold on the stochastics. We have a nice hammer here at key support level. We have earnings coming up. This is an easy trade to the upside for going into next month. So that's why this is on my watch list, Apple, but it gives me also confluence as to why we're probably going to continue to bounce in the major indexes. We go look at Meta. It's pretty strong. This is one of the weaker holdings in the overall like SPY and NASDAQ. Not really much to say here. We had a nice breakout of this bull flag here. I had this on my watch list for a few weeks, telling you guys that we were going to get a breakout of one way or another from this, and I was leaning bullish because we were in a clear uptrend here. What else? So really, we're coming up on a lot of resistance on Meta, so this doesn't leave me to have too much an opinion when it comes to the NASDAQ and SPY. We look at Amazon. This is at a key support level. This gap level here. So a gap down and held this level, that's considered a gap level. They usually end up being significant in the markets. You can also see that it's a resistance level here and support level right here. So you can see that we're probably going to bounce on Amazon. And we have earnings coming up on this as well, but I wouldn't on the same day actually. So I wouldn't be surprised to see the whole market run up and then look at this gap we have to fill above. So I'm a little more hesitant on Amazon instead of Apple, only because it's been a lot weaker than Apple. And usually when the market runs, it's led by Apple, and Apple's usually the strongest of them all. So really, that's the only reason why. But I think this is still a great opportunity, or could be a good opportunity to see this go back to $100. Continue through. Google is also at a key support. And this is why I'm led to believe that the market can continue to bounce. So you can see as we acted resistance here, we acted as support here. So it's a clear support level. We had a nice bounce right after we held it last week. This one has also been weaker in the most recent past, like the past week or so, because I watch these stocks every day. So I see what they're doing every day. And I've noticed Apple has been stronger the past 2 days. Amazon has been stronger or weaker in the past few weeks. Google has been weaker in the past few weeks. Microsoft has been extremely weak, and Meta has been strong in the past few weeks. Okay, so we go and look at Microsoft lastly. So my reasoning for this here is we're at a key support. We go to Microsoft. We're at a key support here, but also more importantly, we've been extremely weak and we've sold off, and we are due for a bounce. So I'm taking the bottom wick of this candle here as my support, the bottom wick, and then it rejected here, here, here. And let's go to the daily time frame. Okay. We had a nice hammer candle right at support. Didn't hit perfectly, but still did its job. And then let's look at, we have a gap to fill above. So this is probably the last name I would go for in terms of taking calls, just because it's like we've sold off so hard. That's like Tesla. We had a really strong sell-off. I wouldn't just jump in front of it until I saw some consolidation like this, how we have a double bottom possibly forming. So that would give me a reason to take the trade. But when you're looking at Microsoft, there's no reason for me to take this trade besides that support, and it has a hammer. It's just the sell-off was really strong. So I'd like to see like a couple of days of consolidation and wicking to the downside. Something that I would like to see, here's an example of what I would like to see. Okay, so here in SQ. So see how we came down to support. You can see it's a support here, here, and acted as resistance, kind of like a supply demand zone flip. And now it's a demand zone. And you can see how we kept wicking for multiple days in a row. That's what I would like to see in Microsoft, like continued days of refusing to go lower to take my entry. Okay, so but the key is that I'm not trying to catch this stock. I'm trying to catch what the overall direction of the market is doing. So if we go look at this and just kind of recap it, we broke upside out of the bear flag that we were forming. We had hammer candles all on these major time frames. The NASDAQ is oversold more than the other stocks, or the NASDAQ is more oversold than SPY, and it's more due for a bounce and looking like it could be like some sort of triple bottom. And then Apple is at a key support. It's got earnings coming up. Meta's got earnings coming up, and it's strong. It's been strong in the recent past. Apple's been stronger. Okay, you get my point. Amazon's been weak, but it's at a major support level. Google's at a major support level. Microsoft sold off really hard and at a key support. So these are all reasons that you can add together to put together the idea that the NASDAQ and SPX will bounce. We could have a short-term bounce. So that's a really in-depth reasoning as to why I think and how I form an idea of what the major indexes are going to do. A big part of it plays these major tickers here and the VIX. So the VIX, something that happened that's very key on Friday is that we had a breakdown of this trend line. Okay. So if you look at this, we're consolidating. Right now, we kind of closed at support, but we had this trend line here that was continuing uptrend, and I thought we might break upside, but we ended up breaking downside and retested it. And that's why we had that huge push on Friday. So the VIX, if you don't know what this measures the fear in the overall market. It's basically called the fear index, but it really measures the volatility within the market. So how crazily the market moves on a day-to-day basis. So the higher this is, the more volatility there is. And usually the lower it is, the lower the volatility is in the market. And when the VIX is low, it's usually because the market's pushing up or bullish. If the VIX is up, that means the market is usually bearish and very choppy and extremely volatile and a tough market to trade in. Right now, we're at the lower range. As you can see, we were up near 35. This was a really tough time to trade, but you can see that this can give you indications on what's going to happen in the market. Because you can see here, we had a double top and then a massive move down. If we go look at SPY on the same time frame, might not be as easy to see. Okay, I'll just flip it back and forth. Okay, so you can see we had this double top on like in the beginning of October, midway through October. Yep, this was the area when we had that double top, and then look at the rally that led to. So this can give you good indications. So right now we're seeing that this is breaking down of this structure that I was forming, this uptrend. It broke it, and now we can expect it to go back down to $20. It's got a gap to fill down here, and then $20 is a key magnet level that we like to go back to, that the market tends to go back to, or the VIX tends to go back to. So this is something I'm going to watch for it to bounce here. And then I think that's where the market will kind of turn, or at least start to move back down. But we do have a level down here as well that we need to fill, this gap level right here. So this is leading me to believe also the market will be short-term bullish. Okay, so we broke all that down. Now we're going to get into some stocks that I'm watching going into this week and longer-term moves that I'm looking for. Okay, so first thing is semiconductors. I'm looking at NVIDIA. Why I'm looking at NVIDIA is because we're in between two key zones. So we are holding a key level here. So you can see support, resistance, resistance, support again. And so I'm kind of watching for a hold of this level here of the 145 area for a move upwards. And then we have a resistance level back up here, which we rejected a few weeks ago. And so I'm kind of watching to see what we're going to do in between these levels here. So I'm mainly watching for the bounce. If we break below, we can take puts, but right now I'm watching for the break above. Okay, so or the hold above, sorry. So that's NVIDIA. And if we're looking for a rejection level, because we are in a downtrend, I would look for, if it can travel up to this level, that'd be an easy place to enter. But if we look in terms of another level that we could use, you can see this level here acted as resistance, support, support. It's a gap level and resistance, and so on and so forth. So this could be a potential rejection area. We go look at the daily. It's looking like it's ready to bounce. So if we draw a trend line here, this can give you also the idea that it may come back up, retest this trend line, and break down and use this level and trend line in conjunction to reject and go lower. Okay. So first, that's NVIDIA. Google, we already went over this one, but I'm watching this key level here and here. Acted as resistance, acted as support. So now I'm looking for a break of kind of in between these two, play bounces and rejections of either, but I'm going to keep an eye on both. Okay, so that's Google. XLE is in an interesting place. So I'm looking to play it off of XOM, Exxon Mobil. So what I'm looking for here is we had a key support level here. As you can see, it was resistance, and now I'm looking for it to act as support. And so we had a nice bounce off of this this past week. Let's go to the daily time frame. And so I'm looking to see, basically this is kind of in a deciding moment, if we're either going to push higher or we are going to reject this trend line here. So it's either we're going to bounce or we're going to reject, like the weekly time frame looks like it's a break and retest of this key level here. But if we go look at the daily, it looks like we might be forming a bear flag that's heading into this trend line as a rejection. So this play I'm kind of neutral on, and I think it could go either way. I think it could reject downside, or I think it could bounce and continue upside to new highs back up here, right around here, 115 area. So how I would do this is I would either wait for it to come back to this bottom trend line for an entry for calls, or you could just play the downside back to 106 for more of a short-term swing trade. So that's what I'm looking for there. Disney is another name that I have that I'm watching. Let's clear this drawing set. Go to the weekly time frame. Okay, so this has earnings on the 8th. Okay, so that's what we're looking for, or I'm watching for a possible bounce there, a run into earnings. And we have this key support level here. So we bounced here, we bounced there, we bounced there, we held it here. We had a nice breakout, and it looks like on the lower time frames, this is some sort of falling wedge. And we broke this trend line. So I'm looking for somewhat of a break. We had the break, and I'm looking for pullback down here, retest for an entry to go upside. Okay. And lastly is Apple. So Apple's definitely my favorite play. That's something I'm probably going to want to get into coming into this week and play the upside here. I think we may have a run into earnings, or at least have a nice move into this. I think we will go retest this area here. And I'm basically looking for this. So my idea behind SPX, how I think it's going to bounce and then reject higher, is my same kind of thinking with Apple, is that I think we are going to bounce here and come back up to around the 140 area, maybe 150, and then ultimately continue lower. But if we break 150 on Apple and hold it, and we break these previous highs here and continue higher, I think we'll go back to 130 or 430. But then that will be the deciding point whether we turn back bullish and turn back to a bullish market. Like, because we just follow market structure. If we look at the weekly time frame, we created this high and then a low and then a lower high, lower low, lower high, lower high, lower low, lower high, lower low. Try to make a lower high. We haven't made a lower low, so this one doesn't matter as much. But if we get up to this area, it's kind of make or break here. We're either going to shoot back down, or we are going to break this, have some sort of pattern form, and then resume the bull market that we had for the past few years. So I'm kind of just trailing my idea, staying bearish overall until we break the most recent lower high that created a lower low. Do you guys have any tickers that you want me to look at, go over? Do you have any questions on anything I've been saying? Let me know. Nope. Nobody has any trades they're looking at going into this week? I mean, I would hope so. Muln. Mullen. Okay, I don't know too much of this. I like SPY only. Okay, so what are you seeing in, hey, hello. What are you seeing in Mullen? Like, what are you looking to trade here? You think it's going to have like a short squeeze because there's been a lot of volume coming in? Shirt? Short? You would go short. Okay. Right now would not be a terrible entry. But I'd be prepared to be size for zero because I'd be prepared to size for zero because we've had a nice push and it might just keep going. You never know with the smaller stocks. They're kind of harder to trade. Under $1, they're more tougher to trade. I usually like to trade the long side, but it's probably a lot easier to play the. Yes, it went up fast last week, but we got to have some reasonings as to why we would get short. Like I like this here. I like the stochastics oversold. I like this evening star candle here. I like that it's at a resistance level here and trying not to break these new highs. But I don't like that it didn't create a lower low here. So the downtrend is kind of starting to bottom out. So it's kind of tough. I don't, like I said, I don't ever trade these types of stocks, so I don't know too much about them and how they trade. So I don't know. I wouldn't play it myself, but it wouldn't be a terrible trade, I guess. I don't know. I don't play those stocks, so I don't really have a comment on it, to be honest. Yeah, it is cheap. It's definitely cheap, but it's in a very strong downtrend. So it would be wise to short it. Yeah. I wouldn't say it's bad play at all for sure. ES 4-hour. What do I think of the ES 4-hour? Okay. Let's go to the weekly time frame and let's pick out some levels. Okay. This is a little different than SPX because it has after hours. So I got to be conscious of that. Or the levels are a little different. Okay, so resistance, resistance, support, 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 support again, support there. I'd probably keep that level. Okay. So, and then we have a pretty clear resistance here. Yeah. So resistance, resistance. I like this level a lot better. Resistance, 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 support, resistance, support. Okay. So let's go to 4-hour. Okay. So initially we had a long wick here, long down wick, bullish engulfing. We're kind of wicking upside, which means that sellers are continuing to come in. So sellers are continuing to come in. So like you can see in each candle, sellers by these wicks. We're also retesting this area right here. So this could be a decent rejection zone here for SPY. I wouldn't be surprised if it rejected here, like if it didn't just start going down from here. So yeah, that's what I think about the 4-hour. That this is pretty much a break and retest. We had a break here. Really, if it breaks above here, that's when I wouldn't want to get into the play, because this was the most recent higher low that created a lower low. So I'd be watching this, but anywhere in this area, I'd kind of be watching to get short SPY. And just keep your stop loss set and re-enter if it stops you out and still is valid. But it's probably a break and retest play here. Best entry would probably be here, right around this area, 39.40, because it's a weekly level. And we're not yet broken on, we haven't broken this consolidation here yet. So we're still here. Like we haven't broke on this candle here. We still have been rejecting. So we're still in the chop, really. I wouldn't be surprised if we reject it, honestly. I'll probably look for that in the morning when the market opens to see if we're around this area for rejections right around here. Coin. Okay. Somebody say a different one. I like SPY only. Okay. I like SPY too. All right. So I see this downtrend forming. Let's see how the options contracts look. The IV is extremely high on these contracts. So just be aware of that. Like on pullbacks, you're going to get hurt a lot. Like it'll hurt a lot more than a normal contract. So it might be better to play shares if you're thinking upside. But if we look at the weekly time frame, we're just at new lows. So we're kind of like in the middle of nowhere. So it's not really something that I would necessarily want to get into. It's wicking, but if you look at this candle here, we've been wicking on the overall market in the past 2 weeks, and you can see this candle is still way more bearish than SPY's candle. What's Bitcoin look like? Bitcoin looks like it's forming a bear flag. Honestly, as for coin, I just don't think it's a spot where you want to get in at. Like, I don't think, like, I think I would wait for a rejection to come back up to this level and play puts there. But other than that, I wouldn't really want to go long here. Maybe let's see if we see something on the lower time frames. It's trying to create a double bottom here. So maybe if it goes up, you could look for. No, it looks like it's about to break down even more. It's rejecting this area here. Looks like a break and retest to continue back down to this double bottom area, 31.55. So short term, very short term, I think it's going to continue down. Long term, I have no bias because there's no levels down here. It's either going to create a double bottom or a triple bottom. Here's the scenarios. Looking at this here, it's a break and retest. I think we're going to continue lower. We're either going to most likely create a new low, or we'll create a new high or some sort of triple bottom and then break upside. But I would put my money on continuing lower because, I mean, if you look at the chart overall, it's just continuing lower and lower. But it's setting up for a breakout. This breakout could lead to a retest of this just to continue lower. But that's my thoughts on coin. Short term, there's a setup. If you want to play the long side, you're going to need to wait a little bit longer for it to actually set up, because there's nothing here on the lower time frames that'd make you want to get in. Typically, what you want to do is when you're looking for some sort of trade, you want to look at the higher time frames. Like, for example, how I would have, like, if Disney would have been on my radar a few weeks ago, or whenever it had its breakout, how I would have played it was, or let's just do Amazon because it's a live example. So we look at the weekly time frame. We're looking at the weekly time frame for our overall picture of what's going on. So you can see, looks like we're rounding the corner in momentum on the squeeze. We're looking like we're going to cross over in very overextended territory. We're at a key support level. So I get my level from the weekly, and then we go to lower time frame. So like my idea here is, okay, we're coming up on a key support. We've been selling off a lot. So what I would do is I would say, okay, we could bounce here. So am I gonna, like, if we've been selling off like this and we're looking like this on these indicators, am I really going to think, okay, I'm gonna get puts if it breaks here? No, I'd want to see a retracement and then a breakdown. since we're so oversold in these indicators, we're oversold on just the way the chart looks, and we're at a key support, my idea automatically goes, okay, I'm only gonna look to go long here. At this point in time, I may have to reevaluate in a few days or a couple weeks, but at this point in time, I'm only gonna want to go long. So like when this day was coming here and we see it moving towards the support level, I'm looking for longs. So what I would do is I would either wait for an end of day entry on the market, like the overall, I'd wait for just the daily candle to close and then look to get in my entry, or I would look for a lower time frame, like I would go maybe to the 1 hour and look for something that could signal a bullish sign. What would a bullish sign look like? Okay. This right here. Downtrend, trend line, breakout, forming some sort of bull flag, more so like a falling wedge after the breakout. So we're consolidating, squeezing, had a nice hammer off the support, an entry. So here's the difference. You could wait for the weekly candle